Hey there, toy collector friends and Transformers fans alike. Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Triple TC, that's the time travelling toy collector, and today we are looking at a real mashup. There's a bit of time travelling going on because this is one of the first of these ever released. It is another crossover between Transformers and G.I. Joe, and this was the very first one, I think, if I remember rightly. Now, this was Megatron transforming into a Hiss tank, and you also get a Baroness carded G.I. Joe figure with it as well. Now, there's a lot of interesting points to make about this before we even start looking at the figure, and the first thing is, what I really like about this concept is that if you go into the Transformers / G.I. Joe crossover lore back in the comics, then Megatron actually got his first tank mode, which was the sort of green camo detailing, from working with Cobra, so that he got a repaired and upgraded body, thanks to Cobra Commander, into a tank. And here we have the very first, I think it's the very first, somebody let me know in the comments if I'm making stuff up, but the very first, I think, Transformers crossover with a collaborative with G.I. Joe, where we see Megatron converting into their super popular tank, which is the Hiss tank. Now, of course, the Hiss tank previously was, I think, called the Hyena when it was owned by the Red Shadows, but that's going back even further into G.I. Joe lore, and we'll park that for now. That isn't this video. This is this video. So here we have the box in its, and it's again in the, I've already cut the tape just in case you think it's damaged. It's not. But it separates into two parts, which I really super love, which we'll do in a second. But I just want to look at the box art first, because we have some wonderful classic-esque Transformers box art showing us Megatron. And yes, we'll get into the issues with Megatron shortly, because I do understand from seeing some of the other review videos of this figure that there are some Megatronic issues with this particular figure. Now, if you remember, if you've seen any of these before with me, my Bumblebee crossover with the Ore Jeep, and I think it was with Stryker, didn't feel like Bumblebee. It was light, felt thin, overall not great, to be perfectly honest, and a weird choice being Bumblebee, but that's a whole other issue. Go and watch that video if you want to pick up on those points. And I have a feeling this, and I'm prejudging, so I shouldn't, but I have a feeling this is a similar situation. Whereas the what was it? The Cup version, very different, very positive experience I had there. I'm hopeful this is positive. I'm hopeful it's fun, to be honest. I just want a fun toy, but we'll have a look at that. The Hiss mode seems to be impeccable. And of course, super bonus, we get a carded Baroness. Will I take her off the card? Probably not. Purely because I really like, I didn't think I would be that invested, to be honest, but I'm really enjoying keeping my G.I. Joe figures carded, the ones that are coming with the crossover ranges. So I'm really enjoying that sort of bonus collection. Now, I'm just going to move from this artwork to the rear. I appreciate it's a bit tight. Well, there's a product shot of Megatron on the side. And here on the back we have, again, the same split concept, the G.I. Joe Hiss tank. And again, it looks like it has all of the vehicle features. So it has an opening canopy, which can take G.I. Joe figures. I'm not too sure that this works, but I can see why they would do it, and it makes sense, and it's somewhere to store the fusion cannon. And here he is in robot mode with the Baroness, who also can be attached to various other parts of the Hiss tank. And Megatron, I think she can also, well, you're seeing it there, she can fit into the turret when it's behind him. But my anticipation for this is that there's going to be, I think it's a great concept. Don't get me wrong. I think conceptually, this is a really good idea. Really good idea. But I will point out just how big this is. So here we are with my current, almost seemingly favourite figure for size comparisons. I'm not too sure how that's happened. But it's Kingdom Rodimus Prime, which will give you a sense of just how big this box is. You know, he fits comfortably in either half of this. So it's quite a, it is quite a hefty hefty size. But I think it needs to be, because again, you're creating a vehicle that has to scale with the G.I. Joe action figures. So if you're going to deliver on that, this isn't a Diaclone sized HISS tank. This has to be compatible with G.I. Joe. So consequently, the Megatron has to be appropriately scaled, or as close to appropriately scaled as possible, to accommodate this. So blah 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 blah. As I mentioned, these do split aside, and then you've got the top secret Cobra shoebox on the inside, which absolutely nobody cares about. So I'm just going to pause temporarily while I take the outer box elements off, so we can have a look at how it comes inside the box. So as promised, here is the magical inner shoebox, as I like to call it. So G.I. Joe 2022, so we're going back a few years now. Megatron HISS tank, Autobot symbol. Not too sure why we've got an Autobot symbol on the Decepticon toy, but there we are. Hasbro on the front. Still the Autobot symbol there. On the back, I think you saw it in the first bit, it's a top secret file. It's the sort of standard deco for these things, but you can have a little read of that there. And so this is essentially what the box looks like. It opens up thusly and then lifts up thusly, and here we have, I'll show you this as best I can, nothing's going to fall out, marvellous. Here we have Megatron, huge, I would say. There's, you know, next to my hand, it's pretty big. There's the turret with the canopy, or maybe it's not the turret then. Okay, I don't know, I'm talking nonsense until I know more. Elements of the vehicle, the fusion cannon to the side, and Megatron held in with these twangy things, which I will get him out of in a second. He's on a tray, so let me try and move this tray out. I'm assuming the only thing behind it is, apologies while I lie down, the chaos of it all is going to be the Baroness, surely. Is that what we're going to get? It is. Oh, it is what we're going to get. So here we have Megatron. Let me just grab everything out of the shoebox. Everything that matters, anyway. Pop you back in there, Megs, for a second. There's Megatron, and there's the instructions, usual format. I always love these. They always take me right back to where they need to take me. There is G.I. Joe Cobra enemy Baroness with her Cobra backpack that just sticks into the hole in her back. I had this figure as a kid. I had quite a lot of the Cobra figures, if not all the Cobra figures, actually. And G.I. Joe was one of my, well, in the UK it was Action Force, and I started when there was, collecting it when there was 4 versions of Action Force. So there was a preliminary version which was very sort of a mixture of non-characterized generic characters, military characters. Then it sort of branded itself differently, and we had SAS Force, Z Force, Q Force and Space Force, which then allowed for a range of sort of branded in-brand figures. And then Action Force became overtaken. Those 4 teams were replaced by the Action Force that is more aligned to G.I. Joe, i.e. Duke, Flint, Blowtorch, Flash, Snowjob, all of those, and the Cobra. And then G.I. Joe just sort of took over Action Force as a brand in the UK. But yeah, I had this figure, which is why it's just lovely to see it again, and I'm not going to take her off. I have decided. Oh, it comes with a little stand. That's cute. Didn't get a little stand in the old days. We got occasionally the transparent discs with a post on them. So that's lovely. What's on the back? I imagine not too much. Oh yeah, now we get the Baroness's data, and we get some more lovely artwork of the HISS tank in action, with the Baroness giving it large. There, beautiful figure, beautiful to have it carded. It's a shame that it's been punched. I don't know why. I'm still on the quest to find out what you call this whole thing. I mean, I know what it's for. I just wondered if it had a sort of quaint little name in marketing terms, or in manufacturing terms, or retail terms. What do you actually call the bit that gets punched out? If you know the answer, please leave it in the comments, because I'm here to learn. And I've been trying to find out, and I've been asking in the retro collection Star Wars boxes as well, and no one so far has answered. So if you know, let me know. So I'm going to put the Baroness somewhere safe, he says, hopefully. And the next thing I'm going to do is unclip all of this to get Megatron out into hand, and then we can talk all things Megatron. While I'm doing that, if you could just drop a like to the video, that would be fantastic. And also it would really help me reach my next significant subscriber milestone if you could drop a free subscription to the channel. I know everyone says it, I know they will say it, and I know you're sick of hearing it, but you're still here. So if you could just do it, that would be amazing. If you haven't done it already, if you have done it, don't do it, because you'll undo the one that you've already done, and that's paradoxically nightmarish. So don't do that. But if you haven't yet subscribed, then please subscribe. Just don't undo your subscription, because that's not the plan. Anyway, to stop me waffling about it, please just do it, and then I will never have to ask ever again. And I shall get Megatron out of the box and in hand. Don't touch that dial. Okay, so I've now got Megatron all out of the box, and I've got him sort of assembled. And before I start looking at the figure, I'm just going to say that some decisions were made about this figure, and I think most of them were the wrong ones. I had heard other people talk about various bits and pieces that weren't quite right, didn't quite work. And I try to go in being optimistic about figures, and I'm going to say this. There's something odd about this figure that I can't quite put my finger on, because it has a particular sort of charm that makes me really like it, even though I'm about to list off tons of reasons why no one should like this figure. But before I do, again, as I say, I'm going to tell you that I kind of like it. I kind of like that head. I mean, look at the head sculpt. Let's zoom in a bit on that. No, don't do that. On that Megatron head sculpt there. That is a fantastic head sculpt for Megatron. It's nicely articulated. I mean, there's plenty of articulation in this figure. I won't deny that. But there's just so much that's not great. There's no. I don't know. I'll start at the bottom. There's no ankle pivot. There are some soft ratchets in the hips. I don't think there's any in the knees. They're on a ball joint as well, the hips. These side things just sort of hang there. He's got very oddly proportioned short arms. He's got this shield which he can only hold here, and it's hanging by a thread, to be honest, just because of the design of it. And it's not really a shield, folks. It's a bit of parts forming, but there's enough cursing this figure already before I start invoking the word parts forming. His fusion cannon, which kind of sits on his arm over here, but badly, is a bit truncated and is as hollow as the hollowest thing you could possibly imagine, and just looks ridiculous, especially when you're looking at Megatron at this sort of size. And again, because we're talking about size, just so you know, just so you can see what I'm saying, here's Rodimus Prime standing toe-to-toe, literally toe-to-toe, with Megatron. That's how big this Megatron figure is. And you know what? I'm okay with that in its own world, or in this world of crossovers. But then at least give me a fusion cannon that's the right size for the figure. This would be about the same size as the G1 one. And also that cutout on the back. Are you serious? Look at this. Look at this here. What is this? Oh my God. And then we'll get, so again, there's some nice chest detailing. I'm being positive. Do you hear me? Being positive. And then we have these gigantic shoulder pads that make no effort to hide that they're part of the HISS tank. And then you have this thing. Bear with me while I'm going to just sort of tilt up slightly so you can see this. You have this thing, which attaches to the back. Now, interestingly, you saw when I unboxed it that this is a separate entity. And it is technically really obvious how it attaches, because there's a tiny little hinge behind Megatron's head. Sorry, you can't see. Behind Megatron's head that it attaches onto, and it gives you a bit of hingage there. Perfectly logical, perfectly sensible. Of course it is. Except, as some of you will know, I get a bit of transformation anxiety. Sorry, bash the mic. Bit of transformation anxiety. I always think I'm going to break something. I'm going to, you know, and this figure was no different. And there is nothing in the instructions when it comes to assembling the figure that tells you how to assemble this. And what's interesting is, as I say, it's obvious. There's two posts behind Megatron's head that need to go into. Sorry, there's two holes on the hinge that's behind Megatron's head, and there's two posts on this section which obviously clip in there. But if you're trying to just clip them in, you can't. I think I was convinced it was going to snap, and maybe that was just me, but I was convinced it was going to snap. And in the instructions, behold the instructions, it tells us everything about the shield and the fusion cannon and the two other cannons. It doesn't even suggest that section comes detached. So there's no clue as to how you attach it. So you've just got to go with your instinct, which is what I did, and try until it snaps into place. And then I even looked at a couple of online videos to try and see if other people talked about it. No one's talking about it. No one's talking about the fact you have to make this bit up. And again, as I say, it is really obvious how you do it, but I was just convinced I was going to snap it. So let me be the person that tells you, if you ever pick this figure up, and if you don't pick it up, I will understand. But if you ever pick this figure up, there's a little section. There's no point me trying to show you on camera because it's so finicky, you'll never be able to see it. But there's almost two little indents, and they use those as your guide. Slide it in that way, and then suddenly it becomes the easiest thing on the earth. It just literally goes into place. Is it super sturdy? No, probably just as well, because you might have to take it off if you want to put it back in the box. I've not tried to take it off again yet, but there you go. But as we're talking about it, it just hangs there off his back. Now, I know if you're looking at G1, we've seen a lot worse stuff hanging off bots' backs, but this, again, with the canopy here, it's a bit obvious. Now, I know no displays figures facing back facing out, but just as well, because, and I get it, it's all to do with the transformation, blah blah blah, but there's gaps in his fists, there's gaps in his forearms, if you can see that there. There's gaps in his all the way through his legs. Let me pick it up again. This is all gaps. I can get my hand in there. It's all gappy, and then up here, completely gappy. My fingers just keep going in. Now, I get, again, this turret bit has to fit in there when he transforms. I get it, but it feels like we're in the domain of the Bumblebee figure all over again. And it's just, and I know this came before Bumblebee, so in essence I should expect that a bit, because Bumblebee should have been a step up from this. Whether it is or not, perhaps I'd be inclined to say it isn't. You do get this turret as a result, with additional firepower that can come over the top of Megatron's head, so that's kind of a plus. And of course you have somewhere to put your G.I. Joe action figure, if you wish to do so. As I said, I'm not going to take the Baroness out, so I won't be doing that now, but it's a nice option. Now, if you take all of that kibble out of the equation, this bit kind of looks good. If you just focus here, I kind of like it. I particularly like the head sculpt. I really do think that they've done a really excellent job with this head sculpt. You know, I mean, look at this. Really look at this. It's G1 Megatron, it's cartoon Megatron, it's the Megatron we know and love, and it's great. And even to an extent, I can take that molded detailing and the colorization on the body. It works. That section, I'm very happy with looking at this bit of Megatron. Goodness me, am I? Yes, I am. So really happy with that. And he's quite sturdy. Overall, those ratchets, nothing's wiggling about and moving, so he's quite a sturdy bot. Let's be honest about that. So robot mode Megatron, too hollow, lots of kibble, excessive amounts of kibble, which is a shame. But the G1 elements are strong, I would say, and it's a nice sort of nod to the lore that he's merged with a Cobra tank, thing. So I kind of appreciate that. But my goodness me, if I was to recommend this as a figure, I'd say no. Don't do it necessarily. If you want the collaborative collector's piece, then yeah, okay, you're not going to not buy it just because I'm saying they've got hollow parts. God knows there's enough hollow parts across the Transformers already. So that's not I know that's not a thing that's going to stop you buying it. And I wouldn't stop you buying it because, again, conceptually, I think it's brilliant. And we know, do we not, that when it comes to vehicle modes, and this harks back to G1 and throughout really Transformers history, although less so these days, thankfully, apart from certain observations like we're seeing here, the vehicle mode has to take priority over the robot mode, because the vehicle mode is the thing that's selling it. That's the disguise. It has to look like the vehicle mode. I know that doesn't always work, I get it, but in this instance, from what I've seen of the photos, the vehicle mode is going to work. So I suppose what we're saying here is, yes, maybe he's a bit parts formery, maybe he's a bit shell formery, but actually you've got core, at its core, you've got G1 Megatron, and he can then transform into a very convincing Cobra Hiss tank. So, shall we find out how convincing his Cobra Hiss tank form is? I'll take that as a yes. Again, I will do this off screen so you don't have to endure the torture of me transforming it, just in case it's problematic. And then I'll feedback on my findings when I present him in his Hiss tank mode any second now. And here we are, with Megatron all transformed into his alternate mode. And yes, it's an alternate tank mode, but this is the Hiss tank, the Cobra Hiss tank. And I have to say, the figure ends up being worth it for the Hiss tank mode. You, apart from a couple of things which you'll see, I'll show you in a second, you wouldn't necessarily know that this was Megatron in disguise. This looks like the Hiss toy. I mean, it is great. There were a few joining up errors that I think I probably made, but I have to say, for all of the instructions that you get with Transformers, it can be hit and miss. Sometimes the illustrations are fantastic and they really tell you and show you everything you need to know. Other times, this is one of those times, they show you stuff with not a lot of helpful exposition as to what you're actually looking at and what is actually moving where and when. To the point that I love, because, well, I'm just going to talk about the articulation in a second. But frankly, I ended up doing most of it without the instructions, because the instructions were making it more complex from my poor addled brain. So I appreciate it could be my poor addled brain. I get that. But I just, because I know what the Hiss tank looks like, I ended up doing some of it myself. And the irony is that the section with the turret in it popped off twice while I was trying to transform it. It took me so long to get it on, it popped off twice. So there you go. Take from that what you will. The turret moves quite stiffly. I'm just going to show you this. So that's good. You've got articulation with these guns as well. They are individually attached, so they don't have to point in the same direction at the same... Well, they have to point in the same direction, but they can be tilted up independently. And the pointless fusion cannon on the top, which I actually think it looks better without, but it's supposed to be there, is, you know, fluid. I'm just thinking we might be able to attach it on... No, we can't. Just trying to see if there's an alternate place to locate it on the tank, because that's what I would have preferred. But there is... unless it can point this way. No. So I'm going to leave it off for the side for now, because to me, the Hiss tank doesn't need that. This is what a Hiss tank looks like. It'd be great if I can find somewhere else to store it. Maybe there is somewhere else. I'll just have to look for it. The tank treads look great. There's a lot of nice detailing there. Again, it's not quite tabbed in all the way. There you go. It's a reassuring click, and you can just, and suddenly when one thing goes in, everything else starts to click together nicely. But yeah, it's not as great as I would like it. You can see the Decepticon symbol there. It's the only place there is one. And I think I would have liked it if we could have had an integrated Decepticon symbol somewhere else. Just because that's... And I get that he's in disguise. I get it. But it just would have been nice. I mean, there's enough Cobra symbols all over the damn thing. it would have been nice if we could have just had a Decepticon logo somewhere, or maybe one of these could have been, or I don't know, because I'm not a graphic designer, but a merger of the Decepticon logo and the Cobra logo. I've always liked the Cobra logo, to be fair. So I like all of the detailing there. We've got some tamper-graphic detailing around the side. We've got the headlamp area there. The cockpit, let me move this out of the way. I haven't bothered shutting it because I don't want to shatter the plastic. I have a fear that's going to happen. The cockpit is nicely detailed. Let's see if you can see as much of that. There's no colorization. There's probably a Toy Hacks option. But you can see there, hopefully, you've got a sort of a gear stick, some controls either side. That's where the legs of the figures will go, and then it just sits up there. But it's nice. It's nice to see that they've molded in some detailing within the cockpit. As I say, I'm a bit reluctant to try and close it fully, just because I've got visions of how that will go. But hey ho, it's nice that there's a toe thing on the back there. There's posts there you can stand your figures on. Of course, the figures can also be stood inside the turret there and operate the guns. Overall, this looks like a HISS tank as it came out in the 1980s and the early 90s, and has been re-released since, of course. But to me, this is why we suffer the Megatron mold with all the bits, because this is this looks really great. This looks really great, and I think that is to not roll back on what I said earlier, but I think this is the thing that makes these work, is the fact that, you know what, that they shouldn't prioritize the vehicle mode. They do, because the vehicle mode is the selling point, I think, more than the robot. I think that's a shame. I think they could do the robot mode as much justice as they do the vehicle mode. Then this would be a phenomenal set. But I'm guessing at that point it would also suddenly see such enhanced engineering that the price would rocket, and it would suddenly become just not sustainable. I know there is a Soundwave who transforms into the Dreadnought car thing with 2 figures. Why do I know that? I know that because I've got it, and that's going to be my next collaboration video, which will be coming out soon. So if you've not subscribed to the channel, it's worth it for that, because again, we seem to have a really poor one of these followed by a really strong one. So we've had poor Bumblebee, which should never have been Bumblebee, turning into the Ore. Again, the Ore was great. Bumblebee, no. Then we had Cup turning in from Cup, which was a strong robot mode compared to Bumblebee, into the Triple T snow cat thing, if I remember rightly. I might have made that up. It was so long ago. And now we've had Megatron. I know that's not the release sequence, but we've got Megatron turning into terrible robot mode overall, I'm happy to admit. With a few perks, but overall, but turns into a fantastic HISS tank. And again, from what I can see, Soundwave looks pretty good in robot mode and in the Dreadnought vehicle mode. I haven't done the transformation yet, I haven't taken it out yet, I'm saving that for a video, but I think the pattern is clear, so goodness knows what we're going to get next in the range. But statistically, it might be a bit of a stinker, but we'll see. They might have learned, there might be many improvements, but on the strength of the HISS tank, and you know, that section in the middle of Megatron that looked like G1 Megatron, I think I'm happy with this purchase. And I'm also not sure which mode I would display him in. I think, given the circumstances, I would probably display him much more in this mode. Again, I love the Baroness figure. I will not be uncarding her, so she'll be staying as a supporting character. But yeah, again, I think what they've done works. I think it's a shame that the engineering was a little cheap and a little underdeveloped. But you are getting, you know, you are getting what you're getting. So from that point of view, it's hard really to say that it wasn't it's not a great combination. It's not a great crossover. I think the crossover element of the vehicle does work. I think giving us the Baroness is always going to work for me. I just think it's a shame the robot mode suffered slightly, but such is the way of things. You know, it's the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. So, have you picked this up? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Is it as sort of a guilty pleasure? What would you like to see in the Transformers G.I. Joe crossovers in the future? What do you think we might yet get? Don't think we've seen any flying ones yet, so maybe we're due a flying collaborative one. Don't know. That's not an inside scoop. That's just me pondering. You know, we've had all-terrain tanks, vehicle. You know, maybe it's time for something that's either submersible or flies. That's my thinking, but I'd love to know yours, so do let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for spending the last nigh on 20 minutes with me. You've been a fantastic audience. I've been the Triple TC, that's the Time Travelling Toy Collector, and this has been my look at the original G.I. Joe and Transformers crossover collaborative piece of work. Megatron, his tank Megatron, and the Baroness. So it just remains for me to say that I very much look forward to seeing you in a future video, or of course a past video, and that a thing of beauty really is a toy forever. Take care. Bye bye for now.